And every year somebody does not listen to me and something bad happens. And the reason is to train us how to deal with attacks, pressure, problems from the enemy. Does not happen overnight. It takes training. It takes training, so every year we're given something to deal with. And if you listen to me, if you're smart and you listen, then you'll be very, very careful during those 3 weeks. If you don't, if you're not careful, I guarantee you something weird's going to happen, something that you don't like. And it's something that's hard to deal with. It's going to come anyway. It's going to come anyway. It's a rehearsal on God's calendar, and so it is going to happen. I think we need to set up a regular mic.
No, it'll be 2 seconds.
Just let me have it real quick. Okay, I'm not sure what to do here. Test. All right, let's use this. All right, I have a really important teaching this Shabbat. It's something I never knew. Those are the best teachings, something I learned, something I didn't know before. The last time I had something this big was, I don't even know how many years ago it was, maybe 13, 14, 15 years ago, when I learned about the real Mount Sinai in Arabia. And this teaching is probably going to go on for next week and maybe even the week after that, because this is a huge subject that I didn't know anything about. And I was looking at the teachings I gave, the teaching I gave last year for the Torah portion, next week's Torah portion. And I gave you what everybody thinks is a certain location, and it was wrong. It was totally wrong. So I'm going to clean that up as we go through the teaching, and then we're going to see something that's going to challenge you about what you believe about another Bible story. This is what I believe. You don't have to believe this, but I've been a believer 40 years, and this is what I've come to believe. Every single Bible story is wrong. Every single doctrine is wrong. Every single thing that people quote is wrong, or at least their understanding of it is wrong. And the reason is that, for 2,000 years, the world has been in control of a Hellenistic, Greek-based church system. They even called it Christian Europe for 2,000 years. And they took all these stories and they looked at them, both Old and New Testament, and looked at them through Gentile eyes, stripping the Judaism out. So how could they end up with anything except wrong doctrine? And I'm talking about, simple stories, and I'm going to tell you what I mean. You're not going to believe me at first, and I'm going to prove my point. I'm going to take the whole teaching to prove my point. The Jews did not wander for 40 years in the wilderness. They didn't even wander for 38 years in the wilderness. That is a myth. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. It says they were in the wilderness for 40 years, and they wandered around, or at least they wandered around in all these different camps, but it doesn't tell you how long. And so people put that together and come up with this false doctrine that I believed that the Jews wandered in in the wilderness, in the desert, for 40 years. And the whole thing starts with a false identity of biblical locations on the map. So we have to deal with these locations. And I'm telling you, I'm going to prove my point. So I know you don't believe me yet, which is fine. But by the end of this teaching, if you pay attention, you'll probably believe me. All right, let's go to the Torah portion, Numbers 13 and 14. And like I said, this is probably going to span through 2 or 3 Torah portions next week, and maybe even the week after that. So Numbers 13. Here's another another mythology. 40 spies were not sent out. They weren't spies. Nowhere in the Bible does it use the word spy. They were shlachim. What's a shaliach? An apostle, not a disciple. And a disciple is a learner, a talmid, a student. An apostle is a shaliach. An apostle, they're 12 apostles sent out for 40 days. Not 12 spies. Did I say 40 spies?
You did.
Sorry, I meant 12 spies. There were not 12 spies. Nowhere does it say spy. Never. And I've clarified the verses for you. And I've clarified the words in the Torah portion for you. So maybe this will help. Number 13. Then the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, send to yourself. Remember the Torah portion, Lech Lecha, with Abraham? In Genesis 15, God says to Abraham, Lech Lecha. What does that mean? Lech Lecha. Good. Go to you. Go to yourself. Go to yourself. Well, this is the same wording. Shelach Lecha. Send to yourself men, so that they may rope off the land. Now, this is where they got the word spy out. It is not that. It's to cordon off, to rope off. It means extra, like something hanging down like a rope. It means a hanging rope. And that's what the word he uses. Rope off the land of Canaan, which I'm going to give to the sons of Israel. You shall send a man from each of their fathers' tribes, every one a leader among them. So Moshe sent them from the wilderness of Paran, on the mouth of the Lord is what it says. Not by the command, it says on the mouth of the Lord. There's no commands in the Bible. All of them men who were heads of the sons of Israel. These are the names of the men whom Moshe sent to spy out. Sorry. Oh, I didn't catch that one. What should that say?
Rope off.
Right. No. What should it say? What should it say? Rope off, cordon off, measure out, something like that. Cordon off the land. But Moshe called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Yeshua, or Yehoshua. Thank you. Are we switched? Okay, thank you. So, he says, he renamed Hoshea Yeshua or Yehoshua. Now these are interchangeable names which we can easily see in the book of two books, Ezra and Nehemiah. Especially, and Zechariah. Especially Zechariah chapter 3 and chapter 6. These are interchangeable names. Joshua and Yeshua. They're the same name. One is Yeshua and one is Yehoshua, which is not Yahashua. And it is not Yahshua. It's Yeshua. All the Hebrew roots guys are saying Yahshua. That is bad Hebrew. The word is salvation. It's just the infinitive form of salvation, and it's Yeshua. All right, so he renames him Yeshua, and he does this for a reason. When Moshe, verse 17, sent them to measure by cord the land of Canaan, he said to them, go up there to the Negev, then go up to the hill country, see what the land is like, and whether the people who live in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many. How is the land in which they live? Is it good? Is it bad? And how are the cities in which they live? Are they like camps or are they fortifications? How is the land? Is it fat or lean? Are there trees in it or not? Make an effort then to get some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time of the first ripe grapes, which is right now, by the way. Okay, so here's the deal. The deal is that when you're reading the Bible, you picture something in your head. And you know you do. Everything we picture is wrong. Once in a while, we get something right. Once in a great, great while. If we know the pictures, then we can know what to picture in our head. When I say you Negev, or say the hill country, what do you picture? When I say the wilderness, what do you picture? Where do you picture? And here's the whole problem in a nutshell. You've got to be able to picture the land, the geographical map of the land in order to understand what the heck is going on here. I've been a believer 40 years and I had zero idea what was going on here until this week. And here's the reason. My mind stayed my mind stayed west of the Jordan and into the Sinai Peninsula. That's where my mind was. When I would picture the Bible, my mind stayed on the west side of the Jordan. My mind never went over to Arabia and Jordan. And the reason is, the only time I ever went to Arabia in my mind was when I learned about the real Mount Sinai in Arabia, about 15 years ago. So this is a huge revelation, and I'm hoping to give you this revelation today. Passage goes on. It's actually, the Torah portion goes on later on in chapter 13 and then in chapter 14. Now, the apostles have been sent out. They come back, and we got to know where they come back to. When they return from, I did it again. What should it be? What should it be? Come on, wake up, guys. I'm asking you a question. It's your turn. What should it be? Roping off or cordoning off. When they return from cordoning off or roping off the land at the end of 40 days, they proceeded to come to Moshe and Aharon. Now, if you don't know this, the end of the 40 days, do you know what date that was that they gave this bad report about the land? Do you know when that was? Not the 17th of Tammuz, but it's not a bad guess. Worse. Right, the 9th of Av. And it says in the Mishnah, 5 horrible things happened on the 9th of Av. This is one of them. That they gave this bad report. The apostles gave a bad report, and God said, you're not going into the land. You're doomed to stay right here. But the question is, where's right here? They returned from cordoning off the land at the end of 40 days, 9th of Av. They proceeded to come to Moshe and Aharon and to all the congregation of the sons of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. Now, I don't know what you picture in your mind, but I picture what all the maps say about Kadesh, that it's right at the southern border of Israel, way down in the desert on the border of Egypt, which is Sinai. Sinai Peninsula is Egypt, at the border of Egypt and Israel. And it says the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried. And the people wept that night. All the sons of Israel grumbled against Moshe and Aharon. And the whole congregation said to them, I wish we had died in the land of Egypt. Or would that we had died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Let us appoint a leader and go back to Egypt. I could talk forever on that, but I'm not going to because I have something else to teach you. This is huge. It's just a huge, huge subject. Then Moshe and Aharon fell on their faces in the presence of all the assembly of the congregation of the sons of Israel. Yeshua, Ben Nun, and Caleb, Ben Yefuneh tore their clothes, saying, the land which we passed through, I did it again. What should it say? Come on, guys, what should it say? Don't make me do all the heavy lifting today. Come on, I'm tired. What should it say? Cordon off or rope off. I need you to open your mouths, guys, or else this isn't going to work. Not today. To cordon off or rope off the land is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord is pleased with us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us. But all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Now, I did an illustration for the Tree of Life Bible. I love this illustration because all the emotion in the apostles of Israel, I mean, they're ready to stone these guys, Caleb and Yeshua. This is Caleb and Yeshua. And they're ready to stone them. They're screaming at him, and they're ready to kill him. More scripture. The Lord spoke to Moshe and Aharon, saying, how long with this evil congregation who are grumbling against me? That's what it says in Hebrew. How long with this evil congregation? This evil what? That's what it says in Hebrew. Edut. Congregation. That's what they translate in the New Testament as what? Church. That's what they translate in the New Testament as church. How long with this evil church who are grumbling against me? I have heard the complaints of the sons of Israel which they are making against me. Say to them, as I live, your corpses will fall in this wilderness. There's a bunch of wildernesses, and they all have names. And God says, wherever they are, wherever the apostles came back to, that was the wilderness they were going to die in. How long did it take for them to die? 40 years, right? Which we'll get to. Well, that's where they were for 40 years. In that specific wilderness. Even all your numbered men, surely you shall not come into the land in which I swore to settle you. Your children, however, whom you said would become a prey, those are the ones I'm going to bring in, and they're going to know the land which you have rejected. But as for you, your corpses will fall in this wilderness. He said it twice. According to the number of days which you spied out. Sorry, there it is again. Don't make me do all the heavy lifting. What should it say? Which you roped off the land 40 days. For every day you bear your guilt a year, 40 years, and you will know my opposition. I, the Lord, have spoken in this wilderness. That's 3 times he said it. They shall be destroyed, and there, in this wilderness, they will die. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm just a normal guy, and I picture what they told me to picture. I picture the Jews wandering all over the desert of Sinai and all over the desert of the Negev up in Israel, and they're going to all these different places that we don't know where they are. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. I'm going to prove it to you. So here's what he says. These are the clues that God says. Number 1, he calls it the wilderness of Paran. Number 2, he calls it the wilderness of Zin. He said, this Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. Then he says the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. Then he says 3 times, in this wilderness, in this wilderness, in this wilderness. That's where they are. And I never knew where they were. Why? Because I never read the passage. I mean, I read it, but I didn't read it. I didn't pay attention to what it was saying. I didn't pay attention to these very, very clear clues that God was giving. Wilderness of Paran, the wilderness of Zin, wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. This wilderness, this wilderness, this wilderness. He's very clear about it. Now, this is not arbitrary. The reason it's not arbitrary is because this is a huge subject. And I feel like I've walked into a room I've never been in before, and this thing just goes on and on and on and on and on forever. It's an enormous, enormous subject. It has to do with Yeshua. It has to do with the kingdom. It has to do with faith. It has to do with unbelief. It has to do with being able to see God's word and see the kingdom. It's all the big ones, all the big ones. And this is going to hopefully establish all about this. Now, last year, when I taught about Kadesh, or Kadesh Barnea, I put it here, because this is where all the maps have it. All the maps. But you know what? I found out that this only started in 1918. Before that, it was in a completely different place that I never knew about. So there's 2 times when God brings forth water from the rock, right? Remember that from last year? There's 2 times God brings forth water from the rock. The first time is down at Mount Sinai, the real Mount Sinai in Arabia, at Jabal al-Laus. And God brings forth from this gigantic rock. It's still there. It's split down the middle, and all the rocks underneath it are worn away. That was called Meribah. Now, Meribah means fight, contention, fighting, arguing, fighting. And so Moshe named this at Rephidim, down at the real Mount Sinai. He named it Meribah. Not Meribah Kadesh, just Meribah. And then later on, when they go to Kadesh, he names it Meribat Kadesh. Why? Because again, God brought forth water from the rock. And this time, Moses was told to speak to the rock, and he didn't. He hit it twice. And so God said, you're not going into the land, because you and Aaron did not treat me with holiness before the people. So you're going to get to see it, but you're not going to get to go in. This happened at Meribah Kadesh, not here. This is what I'm going to show you. So this is my map from last year. This is what I taught you last year. I have the wilderness of Paran here, Kadesh Barnea here. All right? It's wrong. It's completely wrong. So what we got to do is figure out, where is the wilderness of Paran, where is Zin, where is Kadesh? Because those are the 3 clues that we were given by God, yes? Wilderness of Paran, wilderness of what? Zin, good, and Kadesh. So, it cannot be where we had it. Here's why it can't be where I had it, or where everybody has it. Because number 1, it's not even near Edom. It's not even near Edom. And you're going to see that all the definitions of Kadesh put it near Edom. Edom's over here. And this is on the bad map, which is correct. They're all over here. Edom is over here and stretched down like this to where it says wilderness of Paran. This is all Edom down here. This is Sinai. I'm sorry, this is Saudi Arabia. This up here is Jordan. And what I'm telling you is, my whole 40 years as a believer, I never let my mind travel over here to Jordan. When I'm reading the Bible stories, I just stayed over here on the west side of the Jordan. Okay, it's got to be near Edom. If it's not on the biblical south border, it's inside Israel's biblical borders. Where did they, quote, wander for 40 years? In the what? In the what? That's not Israel. Right. They didn't wander in Israel for 40 years, right? They wandered, or they were stuck in the wilderness for 40 years, which is outside Israel. And then they got to go in. So Kadesh Barnea cannot be in the biblical borders of Israel. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Once I got my head wrapped around that, I was fine. Okay. So let's go down here to this map. So I have this incorrect location for Kadesh Barnea. Now this is a town right outside the modern border of Israel. It's right on the border of Israel, modern border of Israel. And it's called Kudeirat. Kudeirat, and it's Arabic. And it's an Arabic town. That's where everybody has Kadesh. That's Kudeirat. But look, it's 27 kilometers inside the biblical borders of Israel. This is the modern border of Israel. When I did that old map, like an idiot, I put the modern border of Israel, not the biblical border of Israel. The biblical border of Israel is Wadi El Arish, which is a river that's still there, by the way, and it comes way down here, and then it cuts across. This is not Israel. This is Egypt. That little triangle down there, that's Egypt, and it's Edom. It's right on the border of Egypt and Edom. Remember, Edom's over here and swings over here. So this is now part of the, this is the Sinai Peninsula now. That red line marks it. But anciently, Egypt came to here, like that. So they've got Kadesh in the wilderness inside Israel. You understand what I'm saying? Inside biblical Israel. It cannot be there. Now, that doesn't tell us where it is, but at least it tells us where it ain't. Does that make sense? Yeah.
That would contradict that they were in Israel when God said, you're not going to answer.
That's my whole point. That's my whole point. They weren't in Israel when God said, you're not going into Israel. They were outside of the biblical borders of Israel, whatever that is. So we don't know what it is yet, but at least we know it ain't there. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, let's go through the biblical history. Let's go to Exodus 19. Actually, you should know this by heart by now. This is the Shavuot passage. In the third month, the sons of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt on that very day. On that very day means the third day. Third month, same day. Third month, third day. So it's Sivan 3. They came to the wilderness of Sinai. The wilderness. So each of these wildernesses have a name. The wilderness of Sinai is down here by Mount Sinai. Not sure exactly how big it is, but it's a wilderness and it's down there in Saudi Arabia. Now, they stay for 11 months and 10 days. They stay at Sinai for 11 months and 10 days. If you go to Numbers chapter 10, it tells us when they left. God tells them to get up and leave Sinai. And it's 11 months later. This is important. I'm not sure why it's important, honestly. It's just one of the questions I'm left with. I don't know why it's 11 months, but it is. And he says, 10:13. You know what I don't have? Can somebody get my old man glasses from the box? 10:13. So they moved out for the first time according to the mouth of the Lord through Moshe and the standard of the camp, etc. In verse 11, it tells us, thank you very much. It tells us when. Now in the second year, in the second month, that's ER. The second month, ER, that's where we're at right now, except we're going into Tammuz. We're in Tammuz. So we just passed the second month. On the 20th of the month, the cloud was lifted from over the Mishkan of the testimony, and God said, get up and go. So it's 2:20. They got there on 3:3. They're leaving on 2:20 the next year. How many months is that? 11 months. So they've been there 11 months and 10 days. Then they go to a few places. Let's go to chapter 11, verse 3. This is what it records about them leaving Sinai. So the name of that place was called Taberah because the fire of the Lord burned among them. Now they started complaining, and God brings a burning. I'm not sure what that means. Just fires broke out. And it killed a bunch of the people, so they called the place Burnings, Taberah. And then in 1134, they went through the thing with Eldad and Medad that we looked at. That fantastic teaching about Eldad and Medad. Then in 1134, so the name of that place, the next place was called Kibrot HaTa'ava, which means graves of the people who lusted. And it doesn't mean lusted after women, it means lusted after food. They want food. And so God kills a bunch of them there because they want food over them wanting God. And so God kills a bunch of them. And they name the place the graves of the people who lusted. So they bury them there. And then they go to Hatzerot, Numbers 11:35. Now here's the big passage. Very next verse. From Kibrot HaTa'ava, the people set out for Hatzerot, and they stayed at Hatzerot. The very next verse should be our teaching, but it's not. For some reason, the narrative doesn't pick up until chapter 20. And so people think that a whole bunch of things happen, and they're wandering around in the wilderness, unnamed places, unnamed camps, no definition of where they are, what's happening. And so people think they're wandering in the wilderness until you get to chapter 20, but that's not what happens. Now, Numbers 13, the apostles view the land, and they're at the wilderness of Zin and Kadesh. 20 verse 1. 13:26, they go out, they come back to Zin and Kadesh, verse 26. So they proceeded to come to Moshe and Aharon and to all the congregation of the sons of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. Where is Kadesh? At the wilderness of Paran. And they brought back word to them, all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. So we know that the wilderness of Paran and Kadesh are the same thing, same place. All right, and then in chapter 20, we have to skip to chapter 20 to basically go back and start the story again. And that's what's happening. Now here's where most people get lost here. And this is why we've ended up with the false doctrine of the Jews wandering 40 years in the wilderness. I can't tell you how many thousands of times I've said the Jews wandered 40 years in the wilderness. You have too, probably, right? It's a false doctrine. And the reason is there's a jump from chapter 13, the last verse, up to chapter 20. He goes into all this other stuff. And so they get to chapter 20 and they're like, oh, now they've gotten to Kadesh again. So what people think is they're at they're at Meribah, Mount Sinai. They go traveling to what people think is Kadesh. And God says, you're not going into Israel. And then they turn back and they kind of wander all over the place, who knows where. And then they end up in Kadesh again. It's called the two-camp view of Kadesh. They even have a name for it. The two-camp view of Kadesh. But that's not what happens. And I'm going to prove it to you. They only go there once. So now let's go to chapter 20. And it says, then the sons of Israel, the whole church, the whole congregation came to the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed at Kadesh. So now we have Zin and Paran and Kadesh are all the same thing. They're all the same place. Now Miriam died and was buried there. Buried where? Kadesh. Okay. Now let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 1. Deuteronomy chapter 1 is where we're at in the Torah portion right now. Deuteronomy 1 correlates to this week's Torah portion and next week's Torah portion. Deuteronomy 1:1. These are the words which Moshe spoke to all Israel across the Jordan in the wilderness in the Arabah. Now this is a different wilderness. In the wilderness that's called in the Arabah, opposite Suf, between Paran and Tophel and Lavan and Hatzarot and Dizahav. So it tells you exactly where it is. It's not Paran. It's a different wilderness. It is, now look at this. It's 11 days journey from Horeb. Horeb is Mount Sinai. It's 11 days journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. So what people think is, and I did too, that from Mount Sinai to Mount Seir? Mount Seir is way over here in Jordan. But I never thought about it. So what I thought was they went from Mount Sinai to Kadesh, and it should have taken 11 days. But that's not the truth. The truth is, they went straight up to Edom. And that should have taken 11 days. To Kadesh Barnea. How long were they at Sinai, and then God said, take off and go?
40 years?
No. How long? 11 months. 11 months. How long were they at Sinai?
11 months.
How long should it have been from Sinai to Kadesh Barnea? 11 days. I don't know why God did this. I don't know why this is here. This is one of those things that I just don't know. We got to find out. Why these 11s? And it's not the only 11 associated with this story. And I don't have the answer to it. But that's what happens. Now it says that they travel for 11 months from Sinai. So from Sinai to Kadesh Barnea, it says it's 11 months. How long were they at Sinai?
11 months.
How long were they traveling from Sinai?
11 months.
And how long was it supposed to be?
11 days.
I don't know why. I know there's a picture there, but I don't know what it is. So we're going to have to put that on the back burner for now. I just know it's there. Hey, speaking of back burner, I'm not kidding about this. We're going to get to a part in the story that I learned, how many years ago was it? It was in 1984. What is that, 35 years? I put it on the back burner till this week. And I remember. We're going to come across that. All right, next thing. We still have to establish where is the wilderness of Paran, Zin, Kadesh. The 12 apostles are sent from wilderness of Paran, wilderness of Zin, wilderness of Paran at Kadesh, in this wilderness, in this wilderness, in this wilderness. Okay, so we saw that they leave Sinai on 2:20. They're at Petra, and then Kibrot HaTa'ava, and then Hatzerot, and then they get to Kadesh, and Miriam dies. And then information is missing, and this is what confuses everybody. So let's look at Israel's camps, and this will start clearing up the problem. It's in Numbers 33, 2 Torah portions from now, I think. Go to the camps of Israel, Numbers 33, verse 16. And by the way, I read the entire book of Numbers 4 times this week. Plus, I read about 500 other passages, flip-flopping back and forth to make sure that what I'm teaching you is right. And the reason is I learned this fact about where Kadesh is from a guy named Steve Rudd on the internet. I don't believe stuff on the internet. I check stuff on the internet. So I spent the whole week verifying this, and I'll be darned if Steve Rudd wasn't right. I think he's a Gentile. And he did fantastic, fantastic study on this. And all the pages of information he's got just scratches the surface. This is what I've determined. So I've really spent my time studying this concept. So, in the camps, in verse 16, it says they journeyed from Sinai. How long did they journey? After they left Sinai, how long did they journey?
11 months.
11 months. They went from Sinai and they camped at Kibrot HaTa'ava, we saw that. Then they went to Hatzerot, we saw that. And then Miriam dies. And then they went, and then it goes on and it lists 18 more camps. 18 more camps. And then it comes to verse 37. And they journeyed from Kadesh, verse 36. And they journeyed from Tzion Gever and camped in the wilderness of Zin, that is Kadesh. Now, Tzion Gever, we know where this is today. It's right here. They got a beautiful resort in Jordan there called Eilat. Beautiful. Costs a lot of money to go there. It's like going to Las Vegas or something. It's gorgeous. Snorkeling, deep sea diving, beautiful. Tzion Gever means backbone of a giant. It's right there at the top of the Suez Canal. Look where it is, right by Edom. And they went from backbone of the giant, Eilat, Tzion Gever, to Kadesh. That means Kadesh has got to be over here somewhere. It's got to be. At least so far, that's what we think. So then in verse 37, and they journeyed from Kadesh to Mount Hor at the land of Edom. By the way, that's where Aaron died, and it's right by Kadesh. right by it. Then Aaron the Cohen went up to Mount Hor at the mouth of the Lord, and he died there. Then it gives us 9 more camps. And it takes us to verse 49. They camped by the Jordan from Bet Yeshimot as far as Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. And that's where Deuteronomy 1 takes place. And they're staring at the land. They're looking right at it. Moab, up here. They're right here at the top of the map. Right here, looking across to Israel. And Moses can't go in. That's where this takes place. That's the definition of it. By the Jordan, from Bet Yeshimot as far as Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. All right, so there's 18 camps from Sinai to Kadesh. And then after Kadesh, there's 9 camps, then they go in. Where's the 40 years?
Right?
They travel how long from Sinai to Kadesh? 11 months. And it's only 9 camps from Kadesh into the land of Israel. 18 camps took them 11 months. Should have been 11 days. 9 camps from Kadesh into the land of Israel. Where's the 40 years? You see what I'm saying? Something's wrong. It's strange, isn't it? Okay, so let's go back to Numbers 20, which is the portion that makes everybody lose their mind. Did me too. So because there's all this stuff happening before Numbers 20, people think that Numbers 20 is long after the apostles coming back and saying, we can't do it. But it's not. The sons of Israel, the whole church, the whole congregation came to the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed at Kadesh. This is why I'm saying it's 11 months from Sinai to Zin. Because when did they leave Sinai? When did they leave Sinai? 220. 220. They came to Kadesh in the first month. That's 11 months. Okay? So you got 11 months staying at Sinai. You got 11 months from these Sinai to wherever Kadesh is. All these 11s popping up. So the whole congregation came to the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed. Here's the key. What does it say? Stayed at Kadesh.
Yeah.
Where did the apostles go out from?
Sinai.
No. Where did the apostles go out from? Did you forget already? Zin,
Then.
which is Kadesh, Paran, Kadesh. They left from Kadesh. Where did they come back to and say, we can't go in? Kadesh. It says they stayed at Kadesh. No, they stayed. If we'll say Kadesh is here in Edom, just for kicks, 11 months they stayed at Mount Sinai. God gave them all pictures of the tabernacle. Then they travel 11 months to Kadesh. How long should it have been? 11 days, but it took 11 months. How many camps? 19, good. Actually 19, that's good. 19 camps to get to Kadesh, wherever that is. Then they stayed at Kadesh. The apostles go out, they come back, they're gone for 40 days, they come back, they say, we can't go in. God says, you're not going in, you're going to stay in this desert for how long?
40 years.
Until you die.
In this desert.
Until you die.
In this desert. What desert?
Kadesh.
Kadesh. And, no, not the, Kadesh is not the name of the desert. What's the name of the desert? Paran and Zin. This desert, they stayed. They did not wander. They stay there for however long they stay there, and then it's only 9 camps from Kadesh into Israel. Are you with me so far?
Yep.
Are you a little freaked out? I'm a little freaked out.
Because,
Yes.
when they come out of Egypt, the children that were carrying the gold were the descendants that went into
Hold on.
Repeat what he said?
Repeat it again, please.
No, you repeat it.
according to the generations, the people that died in the desert,
The people that died in the desert were the ones who came out of Egypt,
the kids,
the children that were carrying the gold.
were the ones like the third generation, weren't they?
No, second generation. The first generation came out, their children came out with them. That's 2 generations. The first generation, they didn't believe it, so God killed them in the wilderness. What wilderness? Zin or Paran. And the children got to go on into the land of Israel. Okay, all right, now you should be going, what? You should be a little freaked out by now. Listen, this freaked me out.
All the tabernacle stuff happens there at Kadesh.
All the tabernacle stuff? I don't know what that means. The question was, all the tabernacle stuff happened in Kadesh. What does that mean?
That's where they built the
What is-
tabernacle, and that's where they dwelt, and did all the events for the tabernacle.
Yes.
Yeah. Stuff, the tabernacle.
You say it like it's, yeah, of course. You're a better man than I am. When I read this, I was like, I cussed a lot. Let me say it that way.
Right.
I cussed a lot. Nishke. I cussed a lot. Because I've been, maybe it's no big deal to you, but I believed the wrong thing for 40 years. That bothers me. It bothers me that people taught me wrong. And it bothers me that I then taught you wrong.
Yeah.
It's not okay. It's not okay. The reason, when you say it's okay, this is why the church is in the position it's in. Because it's like, well, it's okay, we know you, hold on, it's ignorance, you didn't know. Well, you know what? There's not a single scripture except one that says that. Shaul said it. He says, God winked at your ignorance, Israel, for a while. And that's all. It's the only verse that says anything like that I know of. It's not all right. It's time to get serious about this stuff and figure out what the hell do we believe? And why do we believe it? And that's what made me mad. Why did I believe it? Because I didn't read the darn text.
It's a righteous anchor.
It is a very righteous anchor, I think. Mishke. Okay. All right, so now let's look at the history of Kadesh. Now that I got you to where hopefully you're going, say what?
Right.
Hopefully. All right, let's look at the history of Kadesh. It starts in Genesis, obviously, chapter 14. We're not going to look at it. There's 5 kings against 4 kings. They're all Gentile kings. One of them is named Chedar Laomer, which means glorious heap, the glory of the heap. And he captures this place called En Mishpat, which Abraham went to. En Mishpat means spring or well of judgment. And this is where Abraham was. And it's in Saudi Arabia. It's Kadesh. So if it's a spring, what does that tell you is there? Water.
Green trees.
Right?
Desert.
Right? Genesis chapter 16. This is about Ishmael. Genesis 16 is about Ishmael. Ishmael, it says that he was with his mom. He's a kid, and his mom goes out, and the angel talks to him and says, don't worry, I'm going to take care of Ishmael. And it says that Ishmael grew up in the land of Edom near Kadesh. So, where is Kadesh? Near Edom, in Jordan. In Jordan. Not in the Negev. That's the Negev. Okay? And then Genesis 20, same guy. Oh, sorry. Genesis 20 says that Abraham lives in the Negev near Kadesh. All right, this can get a little confusing. I'm putting Kadesh up here. I'm going to show you why in a while. The Negev is this. This is all Negev. Negev means desert or dry. And that's the Negev that belongs to Judah. Look where it comes to. Here's Kadesh. The Negev is right near Kadesh. In fact, the border of Negev is the border of Edom. I'm part of all this here, this border of the biblical borders of Israel. That's Negev. That's the Amorite. This is Edom. So there's two borders in the Negev, the border of the Amorite and the border of the Edomite. So for it to say Abraham went in the Negev right near Edom at Kadesh, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Then in Genesis 20, same chapter, 15 through 21, it says that Ishmael lived in the wilderness of Paran. And we've already been told that Ishmael went to Kadesh. So there's Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. So we know that the wilderness of Paran has to be around here. It has to be. It's got to adjoin the Negev. And it's got to be in Jordan. Okay, then we're going to look at these. Numbers 13, 14, we already saw, is the apostles being sent out. How many spies were there?
12.
Wrong, there were no spies. How many apostles were there? 12. And they were sent out to spy out the land, right? No. What were they sent out? To measure by cord, to cordon off or rope off. All right. So in Numbers chapter 13 and 14, the apostles go out. They bring back the bad report. God curses them on the 9th of Av and says that whole generation will die where?
There.
There. In that what? Wilderness. The wilderness of Zin or the wilderness of Paran. In that wilderness. And then in chapter 16 is the rebellion of Korach. This is next week's Torah portion. Remember what it said when they came to Kadesh? Did it say they moved on from there?
No.
What did it say they did?
Say they stay there.
They stayed there. That's where the rebellion of Korach took place. It didn't take place somewhere out in the desert. It took place at Kadesh. That's where the earth opened up, at Kadesh. That's where the rebels were killed and burned, at Kadesh. And the next chapter, chapter 17, they rebel again. And they say, hey, Aaron's got all this authority. How come we can't have that kind of authority? And so they test Aaron's authority, and God makes Aaron's rod turn into a menorah, like almond branches, and it even gives forth almonds. It blossoms and gives forth almonds to prove his authority. That took place in Kadesh. And then Miriam dies there, it says. That's in chapter 20. Miriam dies there at Kadesh. They're still at Kadesh.
She buried there?
Yes, she's buried there. And by the way, Josephus says her grave is there, and we can see it to this day. There. So, then in chapter 20, verses 2 through 13, is what I taught last week about God giving water from the rock. Where did that take place?
There,
Kadesh. And he named it Meribah. Fight. Fight. Argue. Fight. Meribah Kadesh. All of this took place at Kadesh because they stayed there. And then in chapter 20, again, verse 14, Edom denies them passage. Now look at this one. 20 verse 14, you got to see it. From Kadesh, Moshe then sent messengers to the king of Edom. Thus your brother Israel has said, you know all the hardship that has befallen us, that our fathers went down to Egypt. Now he pleads Israel's cause and says, Edom, please let us pass through your land. We're not going to touch anything. We're not going to drink any water. We won't do anything. Now remember, Edom is here. They're at Kadesh. And he says, let us pass through your land. And Edom says, no. And so look what it says in verse 21. Thus Edom refused to allow Israel to pass through his territory, so Israel turned away from him. Now when they set out from Kadesh, the very next verse says they leave Kadesh. So the signal to leave Kadesh finally was what?
Edom not letting them.
Right, Edom not allowing them passage. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like important to me.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the last thing, chapter 20, verse 22. Very next verse. Now when they set out from Kadesh, the sons of Israel, the whole congregation came to Mount Hor. The Lord spoke to Moshe and Aharon at Mount Hor by the border of the land of Edom, saying, Aaron, die. So he goes up on Mount Hor and he dies. Guess where Mount Hor is? 3 miles from what this guy Steve Rudd taught me is Kadesh. 3 miles. The whole camp, 2 million people, got up and moved 3 miles. It's Petra. It's Petra, Selah. Yeah, I'm gonna prove it to you. Now, 1 Kings chapter 14, this was the last thing that happens at Kadesh, the last thing that were recorded in the Bible about Kadesh, at least that I know of. It says in 1 Kings 14 that Amaziah captures Kadesh and renames it Yokte'el. Anybody know what Yokte'el means? Yokat. A Yakat. Subdued, made into a slave of God. Made into a slave of God. So this place was redeemed. This is important because in my opinion, hopefully I'll teach it next week, that in the end, in the birth pangs, God is going to repeat history, send the Jews there and redeem them. And turn it, and you're going to see this at the end of the teaching, turn it from a bad place into a good place. Look at the list of the stuff that happened there. Is there anything good?
No.
Hey, apostles sent out, they gave a bad report. The rebellion of Korah. Aaron's authority proven. Why? Because they're arguing, want to kill him. Not good. Miriam dies there. Moses strikes the rock and names it, you fight against God. That's not good. Edom denies it. Nothing good happened at Kadesh. Nothing. And this is what's important. This is why we need to know this. In order to understand why Yeshua went to the Jews, why Yeshua is Jewish and is Israeli and lives among the Jews and teaches from Judaism, why faith is linked to the Jews, you must understand Kadesh. Or else you don't understand the whole story. And I didn't. I didn't understand. I'm telling you this. I didn't. I understood some of it, but I didn't really understand this. Kadesh is huge. Now here's some, say it again. Okay, 2 Kings 14:7. Thank you, Becca. 2 Kings 14:7. All right, here's some historical facts. In 350 BCE, the Nabateans named it Petra. They're the ones who named it Petra. The Nabateans. And you can see on New Testament maps, Nabatea. It's there to this day. I mean, on all the maps, it says Nabatea, and it's right here. In the Amorite and Edomite area. They named it Petra. They're the ones who carved those gigantic buildings. Have you all seen Petra? Pictures of Petra? All these enormous buildings that are carved into the rock. Yeah, called the Pink City, the Rose City. Now Josephus in 110 says this: Moses caused the army, now when he says the army, he's talking about Israel, the hosts, to march through the wilderness and through Arabia to a place the Arabians esteem as their metropolis. Now when he says metropolis, he means their capital. The capital of Arabia. Think about that. Not Mecca, not Medina, that the Arabs or the Muslims have as the capital, but this place called Petra, to a place the Arabians esteem as their capital, their metropolis. Now it has the name of Petra, encompassed by high mountains. Aaron went up and died there at Petra. Mount Hor is right near Petra. Eusebius in 325. Now he's a Christian leader, he's, what do they call him? Church father. He's a church father. So take this with a grain of salt. Kadesh Barnea, Petra, a city of Arabia. There Miriam went up and died. There the doubting Moses struck the rock to give water. There also, now he says Chadalagomer, which is really cool. Chadalagomer beat the chiefs of the Amalek. That's Petra. He takes all the stuff that happened in Kadesh and says, we know that's Petra. Jerome, also a church father, so take this with a grain of salt. Kadesh, in the year 400, a place near Petra called the Spring of Judgment, Ein Mishpat, remember? Where God judged the people. What does that mean, he judged the people? What is he referring to? What's he referring to? Where God judged the people.
The apostles that didn't want to...
Right, the apostles that gave the bad report, and then God judged them and said, you're not going into the land of Israel. This is the big one. This is the big doctrine that we need to know about Kadesh. It's where God judged the people. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is where God judged the people. No location for Kadesh Barnea is given other than Petra. Now this is what they said anciently. So, what's the significance of Kadesh? Why is it such a big deal? So, like I said, most people believe that they went to Kadesh, they wandered around, they left Kadesh, they wandered around for 30-some years, 38 years, went back to Kadesh, all this stuff happened, and then they went on and wandered a whole bunch more, and then went into Israel. It's what I believed, it's what I saw in my head. Now I know something different. It's called the two stops at Kadesh view. Deuteronomy 1, now look, this is the passages that kind of nail down that they stayed at Kadesh. They didn't wander for 38 years. They stayed at Kadesh. Deuteronomy 1:46. "45 says, then you returned and wept before the Lord, but the Lord did not listen to your voice or give ear to you." Now he's talking about that the apostles came back, gave the bad report, wanted to stone Moses. Moses said, "Oh, please don't kill them all." And God said, "I'm not going to listen." So you remained in Kadesh many days. You remained in Kadesh many days. The days that you spent. That phrase always freaked me out. What does it say, the days that you spent there? Of course they spent them there. He said he remained. They remained. It sounds redundant, doesn't it? I want you to go across town to the 7-Eleven, and I want you to be there. Go to the 7-Eleven and remain there. You will remain at the 7-Eleven. The time that you spend at the 7-Eleven is the time you will be at this. It just sounds redundant and ridiculous. Except he's saying it on purpose. He's saying, so you remained in Kadesh many days, the days that you spent. The days that you spent. They came back with the bad report, and God said, you're not going into the land. You're going to spend your days in this wilderness until you drop dead. Get it? They're the days that were spent. They're the days that were wasted. So he says, you stayed there many days. The days that, I'm going to say it this way, the days that you wasted. How long should it have been from Sinai to Kadesh? How long did it take them? Not 11 days, 11 months. Wasted time, just wasted time, wasted time, wasted time. This is why the church is in the shape that it's in. Everything is wasted time. There's no urgency. If I say services are at 10:30, they're not at 11. They're at 10:30. Now I'm starting to get passionate because I've talked to you about this 5 or 6 times. When the Jews say services start at 10:30, they start at 10:30. There's no wasted time in Judaism. There's 4 services a day. Shachrit, Mincha, Musaf, Ma'ariv. And they start at a particular time, and they end at a particular time, and you do certain things on them, period. There's no wasted time. In the church, it's whatever, for whoever, whatever. Who cares? The days that you waste. So if you really want to know God, you've got to really press in and figure this stuff out. It's not easy. And you can't be lazy about it. And they wasted their time, and so they died. Now in Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 14, it says, now the time that it took for us to come from Kadesh Barnea until we crossed over the brook Zered was 38 years. Makes it sound like they were in Kadesh and they wandered around for 38 years and they finally came in, right? Not what it's saying at all. It's saying the time that we wasted at Kadesh was 38 years and then we finally got to go in. It should have been, I don't know how long. Well, that's from Sinai to Kadesh. Maybe 11 days. I don't know. Maybe 3 days. Who knows? Yeah, they're about, I don't know, 70 miles away from the border at most. So I don't know how long it should have taken them to get from Kadesh to here. It's about 60, 70 miles. 2-3 days. I don't know. But it certainly should have been 38 years. And that's what he's saying. The time it took for us to get from Kadesh Barnea, where we wasted all that time, till we finally crossed over the brook Zered, was 38 years, until all that generation of men perished from within the camp, just as the Lord swore to them. This is not good. Now in Numbers 14, back to the Torah portion, Numbers 14, 29.
But they died because they didn't listen, right?
That's correct. They died because they didn't listen. Your corpses will fall in this wilderness, even all your numbered men. What wilderness? Which wilderness? Zin or, that's the name of the town, Paran. Zin and wilderness of Paran. Now they're 2 different wildernesses. They're 2 different wildernesses. Wilderness of Zin is up here, and wilderness of Paran is here. So I guess the vision point is the boundary of them is Kadesh, because Kadesh is placed in the wilderness of Zin and it's placed in the wilderness of Paran. So it's probably one wilderness on one side and one wilderness on the other side. And they're hemmed in on both sides. Your corpses shall fall in this wilderness, even all your numbered men, according to your complete number from 20 years old and upward, who have grumbled against me. And then in verse 32, but as for you, your corpses will fall in this wilderness. Which one? Which one? Zin or Paran. I guess it depends on which side of this town they're on. I don't know. Because they're camped, it's a huge, huge, huge camp. And they're spread out for miles. Maybe some are on one side in one wilderness and some are on the other side in the other wilderness. And Kadesh is the border between them. In your verse 32, verse 33, and your sons shall be shepherds for 40 years in the wilderness, and they will suffer for your unfaithfulness until your corpses lie in the wilderness. Verse 35, I the Lord have spoken, surely this I will do to all this evil congregation, this evil church, who are gathered together against me. In this wilderness they shall be destroyed, and there they shall die. It says it 3 times, in this wilderness. They did not move on from Kadesh. They died in Kadesh. What is, Doug, your friend who's in the burial society? He's in the burial society, right?
Yeah.
At the synagogue? What's that burial society called? Do you know?
Mentioned it last night, I forgot.
Say it again. Good.
Yes.
Kevra Kadisha. Kevra Kadisha. It means grave of the holy, or holy grave. Every synagogue, every temple has a Hevre Kadisha, and it's the people who prepare the bodies for burial. Kadisha probably comes from Kadesh,
Right.
because over 1 million, maybe 1.5 million people died there and were buried there. It was a graveyard. The whole place was a graveyard of Kadesh. The whole place is a graveyard. Maybe 1.5 million people died there. That's why in my opinion, that's why the burial society is called Hevre Kadisha. It should have taken 11 days from the camp at Mount Sinai to Kadesh. Took 11 months. The camp at Mount Sinai was 11 months. Should have taken them 11 days. Now, this is a mystery. I don't understand what this is about. The only thing I can figure is God keeps, it's like 12 is good, right? 12 is a full thing, full number, 12 apostles, then 12 apostles in the New Testament, New Covenant, 12 tribes of Israel. 12 is good. Lots of 12s in the Bible, lots of them. They're all good, right? But 11 isn't there. 11 is short of it. 11 is like wasted. It's like something's missing. It's the only thing I can figure. So you can go find out about that if you want. That's all I have about that. Now, Judges 11. There's one last verse that'll kind of nail this down. That they did not move on from Kadesh. They stayed there. And they stayed there for 39 years. 39 years. Judges 11. Eleven 17. Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom. Remember this? Yes? The king of Edom said, no, you're not passing through. That was the signal to do what? To finally leave, right? To get out. At least that's the way it read there. Now look what it says here. 11:17. Then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, please let us pass through your land. But the king of Edom wouldn't listen. And they also sent to the king of Moab, but he wouldn't listen. So Israel, what does it say? Remained at Kadesh. Them receiving this bad message from Edom that they couldn't pass through was not the signal to take off. That's the way it reads in Numbers. But we know that that's not true. They sent messengers to Edom. Edom said no. Then they sent messengers to Moab. Why isn't that in the text? In Numbers. It's not. But it's here in Judges. And it's other places too. It's in Deuteronomy. So why isn't it recorded in Numbers? It just makes it sound like, got a bad report from Edom? Okay, God says take off and we're leaving. No. And they remained at Kadesh. Edom said, you can't go through us, and Moab said, you can't go through us, so they stayed there, and they stayed there for 39 years.
So that happened early on when they asked.
Yes, it happened very early on, probably the 10th of Av. or something like that. Very shortly after the spies came back. Maybe 12, 13, 14.
Who came back?
Oh, very good. Very shortly after the apostles came back. Very good. Very early on. So they remained at Kadesh. Check out that word remained if you don't believe me. It doesn't mean sojourn. It means stay, camp, remain. Don't move, stay put. Okay, now we're coming to the bottom line. Well, Deuteronomy 1:19 and 8:15 both say they call Kadesh, they call the wilderness of Paran, the wilderness of Zin. Now look at this. The great and terrible wilderness in which there are snakes and scorpions. This is why my mind wandered all over the desert. But it wasn't. It was a localized area. Right here, the wilderness of Zin and the wilderness of Paran. In Jordan. Not in Israel. And not in Egypt. Over here, in Jordan. So we need to take our minds to understand all this stuff and shove them on the other side of the river. And get our minds wrapped around that whole area there. And it's going to take some time to do it. At least for me it is.
Which side?
The east side. The east side. Jordan, the Jordan side. Now, go to Acts chapter 7. Can't hear you. Acts chapter 7. (42). Now, if you don't know anything about this, you need to know about this. God turned away and delivered them up to serve the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets. It was not to me that you offered, it says victims, but that's not what it is. It's offerings and sacrifices 40 years in the wilderness. Now, because of that, I thought they were wandering all over, offering God sacrifices in the tabernacle. But they weren't. Where were they? Kadesh. They're in the city, the town of Kadesh.
That makes sense.
And that's where the tabernacle was. This is what Daniel said earlier. He picked up on it. This is where the tabernacle was for 40 years.
That's one good thing that happened.
Yeah, that's one good thing that happened there. They had the tabernacle. They had the pictures there at Kadesh. Nobody ever told me this. I didn't know the tabernacle was in Kadesh for a long time. I didn't believe that. But that's the way it was. So let's read it again. You took along, God turned away and delivered them, verse 42. God turned away and delivered them up to serve the host of heaven. The host of heaven. You know what that means? All the stars and the sun and the moon. The constellations. No, the stars. The stars. No, it's the stars. like Venus is Ashtaroth, Asherah, the female deity, Easter. That's Venus. Stuff like that. So God turned away, delivered them to serve the host of heaven, all the stars. As it is written in the book of the prophets, it was not to me that you offered offerings and sacrifices for 40 years in the wilderness. What wilderness? Zin and Paran. Was it, O house of Israel? Look at this. You also took along the Mishkan, the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of the god Ramphah, the images which you made to worship them. I also remove you beyond Babylon. He's quoting, I think it's Hosea. It's probably got a footnote there. Can't remember what he's quoting. I think it's Hosea. Amos chapter 5. He's quoting Amos chapter 5. So listen to this. While they're in Kadesh, now here's where I'm going to take a little left turn. So you better fasten your little seatbelts, baby cakes, because you may not believe what I say, but I'm going to say it. This is true. You're going to have to check me on it. When they went to Kadesh, they had with them these Sukkot, or Mishkan, tabernacles, of demons that they brought with them. You ever seen like in Indonesia and places like that, they carry these idols and they have like coverings? Kind of like that, only much bigger. These are Jews. And they offered them sacrifices. They offered them offerings. They gave their tithes to them. They gave their first fruits of their things they raised and their animals to these demons, along with the tabernacle of God. At the same time, one of their biggest practices was, what's the name of the place they're staying in? Kadesh, which means sodomite.
That's what it means.
Look it up if you don't believe me. The word Kadesh, one of its meanings, is a male prostitute for demons.
Is it a similar, I presume it's not a similar spelling?
It is the same spelling. Not similar, it is exactly the same. So, hold on. Same letters, same vowels as Kadesh. Hold on. This is my opinion, that these sodomites, these worshipers, these Kadeshim, worshipped Molech and Rampha and all their other gods that they worshipped with homosexual practices, and they dragged that into the Mishkan of God. And this is what made God so angry. This is why, that's kind of convoluted thinking, so you got to follow me. In my opinion, this is my opinion, this is why the church will never, never, never be able to know the Messiah. Because the church now is so mixed in with Hellenism, with Greek ways, with idolatrous ways, stripping away anything Jewish. They're just like the Jews in Kadesh, who were, humping some dude. Praise Rampha! Baruch HaRampha! Woo! Hey, let's go to the Mishkan now and worship Yahweh. That was fun. Let's do it the same way. And Moshe's there, oh no, you're not. And they keep trying to drag that filth into God's body, His church, His congregation. This is why Kadesh is important. This is. Kadesh is the ultimate picture of mixing Gentile ways with Jewish ways. And they did it the whole time they were there, and that's why they died. You follow me? Okay. I would encourage you to look up the word Kadesh in Hebrew for yourself. Now, Hebrews chapter 3, here's the bottom line. Hebrews chapter 3. Got to go back to the map. Got to go back to the map. How long were they in Sinai?
11 months.
Come on, guys, wake up. How long were they in Sinai? 11 months. How long was it from Sinai to Kadesh? It was not 11 days. How long was it? 11 months. How long was it supposed to be? 11 days. How long did they stay in Kadesh? 39 years. Right up to the 40th year. Right up to the 40th year. Okay. And they go from here to here. Pretty much a straight shot. That's it. That's the wanderings in the wilderness. That's it. And while they're here, because of what they do, God says, you will not enter my land because... Is that true? Is what I said true? You will not enter my land because... Is that true?
No.
It's not? Is that true? Okay, that's what he told the spies. No, the apostle. That's what he told Israel, because they sent out from here and came back to here with bad report. And so God said, you are not going into my
Promised land.
my land, my promised land, right? Okay. Hebrews 3. Verse 8. Wait, verse 7. I gotta preach here. I was talking to Rebecca about this. Everybody tells me this in the all the church people I talk to tell me this, and a bunch of you have told me this. Oh, the Holy Spirit will teach me. The Holy Spirit will show me. What a bunch of crock that is.
Amen.
I've been a believer 40 years. I didn't see this, and I know what I'm doing, and I know how to study, and I know how to pray, and I hear from God every day, and I never saw this. You know why? Because I never saw it in Judaism. If the Holy Spirit shows you something, He must show you in Judaism. Or else it's nishta. It's nishta. It's no good.
It's a different spirit.
It's a different spirit. It's a different story. It's wrong. So the Holy Spirit will give you glimpses. He won't show the whole plan to you. That's your job. That's my job. You need to dig into this book. Some of you come to services, you don't even have a Bible in your lap. I don't know how you do this. You're going to forget everything I said. Yeah, point your finger at each other. That's good. You can't come to services without a Bible and be able to follow this stuff. You got to dig into this thing. You got to dig. But the Holy Spirit will give you glimpses. He will put a shovel in your... Thank you. She will put a shovel in your hand. The Holy Spirit will put a shovel in your hand and say, dig there, and then walk away. The rest is up to us. Either you dig or you don't dig. The Holy Spirit doesn't go, this, because we get bored out of our skull and go, nah, who needs it? So the Holy Spirit just gives you a glimpse, a little vision, a little spark. And the church is living from spark to spark to spark to spark. And it's nishta, it's no good. What we need is to find out the whole story. This is why the church has missed the kingdom. They don't know what the kingdom is because of this. They're like, oh, I get a little spark of this. Oh, the Holy Spirit showed me. Oh, thank you, Holy Spirit. And then they walk away and they forget what the Bible says. Because it's a much, 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 much bigger story. In Hebrews chapter 3, verse 7, it says, as the Holy Spirit says. If the Holy Spirit said it, where does He have to say it? Where does He have to say it? If you're reading the New Testament and it says, as the Holy Spirit said, where does that have to be? In the Tanakh, in the Old Testament. It has to be. Or else it ain't the Holy Spirit. It's Ramtha, or what was the other one? Moloch, or something. But it ain't the Holy Spirit, it ain't the Ruach HaKodesh. And just as the Holy Spirit says, today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts, as when they provoke me, as in the day of trial in the... Which wilderness? Zin or Paran. Where your fathers tried me by testing and saw my works. They saw my works in Kadesh for 40 years. Therefore I was angry with that generation and said, now what's he quoting here? What's the writer of Hebrews quoting here? The Holy Spirit that just came and whispered words to him? What's he quoting? If you had a Bible, you could figure it out. You don't even have a Bible in front of you. Psalm 95, verse 7. And he's going to go on to quote it 3 more times and make application after application after application to the same verse. And yet, people read it and don't see it. And here's what I mean. Therefore, in verse 8, do not harden your hearts as when they provoked me, as in the day of Meribah. That's what it says in Psalm. As in the day of Meribah. Fight. Anger. Fighting. Where's Meribah? Meribah Kadesh. Meribah Kadesh. As in the day of Meribah Kadesh. In the wilderness of Zin or Paran. Where your fathers tried me by testing me. Okay. And then he sums it up in verse 11. He says, as I swore in my wrath, those guys will not enter my what? Rest. My rest. My Shabbat. That's what it says in Psalm 96. Those guys will not enter my Shabbat. I thought they were looking for a land. They're right here. All they have to do is jump across that border and they're there. That's all they have to do. Probably 1 day's journey, if that. Yeah, it's like Juarez to El Paso. They're right on the border. But no, they have to go way out here. So, they're not looking for a land. They weren't supposed to be looking for a land. What were they supposed to be looking for? Rest. All we know so far is rest. They will not enter my rest. Not my land, my rest. And the church cannot see this. Even though it says, and this is just the first time, I'm going to show you 3 more. He says it over and over. Take care, brothers, lest there should be in any one of you an evil, unbelieving heart in falling away from the living God. Who's he talking to in this book? What's the book called? Hebrews. He's talking to who? Messianic Jews. And he says, you better be careful, brothers, lest there should be in any one of you, Jews, an evil, unbelieving heart in falling away from the living God. Therefore, they already know the living God, right? Now, this is not like the church preaches about, what do they, you need to repent, and what do they say? Oh, I fell away from the Lord. Backslide, yeah, thank you. Backsliding. That's not backslide. That's not even a word in Hebrew. The word is mitshuvat. Teshuvah means to turn around. That's all it means. Teshuvah. To turn the other way. Well, mitshuvat means the same thing. You're facing God, you turn away. That's what it means. Not falling away. Turn the wrong way. Exactly. That's what it says, by the way, in the book of Hosea. I will heal your mitshuvat. You're turning the wrong way. So, he says, you better be careful that you don't have an unbelieving heart in falling away, mitshuvat, turning away from the living God. But encourage one another day after day, as long as it is still called today. Now, we have a bunch of passages that tell us when today is. Today started with Genesis, and it went for day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and day 6. Day 1, day 2, the Torah was given. Day 3, all the Gentile kingdoms arose. Day 4, the year 4000, at the end of day 4, Yeshua died. And this was written after that. And he calls it what? He calls it what time?
Today.
What time period does he call it?
Today.
Today. As long as it's still called today, day 5, day 6 is all today. Because after today comes, what do we have so far? Rest. Rest. That's all we have so far. Today, lest any one of you be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin, for we have become partakers of Messiah. Verse 15. While it is said today, and he quotes it again, Psalm 96. If you hear his voice, don't harden your hearts as when they meribad me. They fought with me. For who provoked when they had heard? Indeed, did not all those who came out of Egypt by Moshe? And with whom was he angry for 40 years? Was it not with those who sinned, whose bodies fell in the which wilderness? Sin or Paran. Good. And to whom did he swear that they should not enter his rest? He says it twice now. Not land, rest. But to those who were, now it says disobedient, but there's no such word in Hebrew. It's unsubmissive. In Greek, it's under the hand of, needs to submit. Those who are not under the hand, those who are unsubmissive. And so we see that they were not able to enter what? His rest because of, no, here it says unbelief. Unbelief. No faith. How do you say faith? Emunah. Amen. Amen. Emunah. Same word. Foundation. Belief. Understanding. Lo emunah. No trust. No faith. They couldn't enter into the kingdom, the day of the Lord, the day of rest, the seventh day, as he's going to say, because they didn't believe it. They didn't believe it. Who were they following? When they finally go into the land, who are they following? Who are they following? No, the apostles were dead by that time. When they finally went in, 40 years later, who were they following? Joshua. What's his other name? Yeshua. Yeshua is now, they're following Yeshua. Why? Because that crazy dude Moshe renamed him. What was his name before? Hoshea. Hoshea, which is the same, similar word, similar, it still has to do with salvation, but he changed his name to Yehoshua. Yah, the name of God, Ho means he, Shua, saves. Yah, he saves. It's an interchangeable with Yeshua. So they are following Yeshua. They all die because they don't believe it, and then the kids are like, we'll go, we'll follow Yeshua. And it's a new generation. I could preach on that, but I'm not going to. There's a picture there. Okay, now, chapter 4. Therefore, let us fear, lest while a promise remains of entering his what? Rest. Now that's, how many times has he said it? 3. 3 or 4? 3. He said it 3 times. We are supposed to enter his rest, just like them, but they didn't. Any one of you should seem to have come short of it, whatever it is. All we know so far is rest. It's not believing in Yeshua. It's not. It's not believing Yeshua is the Messiah. It's not. It's rest. For indeed we have had good news, Basar, preached to us, just as they did. Who did? Who had the Basar preached to them? Israel where? In Kadesh. The Sodomites in Kadesh had the Basar preached to them. You can believe me or not believe me on what I'm about to say. It's fine with me. This is my opinion. This is after many, many years of just paying attention. The people that are leading the charge for, quote, gay rights are Jews. Oh yeah, that's well established. But here's what I'm going to say that you may not believe. I mean, you got to believe that because that's everywhere. Judaism is now, in the minds of many, many, many Americans and many people in Europe, is now becoming synonymous with homosexuality. And all you have to do is hang out in LA and Hollywood for about a month, and you'll see what I'm saying. Now that's just surface stuff. But what's happening is people's minds are being turned to, and this is my opinion, to make Judaism, Jewish people, synonymous with homosexual people. And in my opinion, this must happen. Because how are you going to redeem Kadesh if they ain't Kadesh? If they're not a bunch of homosexuals, how are you going to redeem them? Because Kadesh is named Kadesh because it's Kadesh. Because it's Sodomites. This is my opinion, but I hope it opens your eyes to see. I mean, Eileen and I see this every day on television. They'll be doing an interview with somebody, anybody, it's a Jewish guy, and he starts talking about all these wonderful things, and we know he's a homosexual, and then I go, I bet she's Jewish. And sure enough, Harry Goldstein, every time. Every actor, every comedian, every talking head that's Jewish. So just keep your eyes open and see what's happening. There's more homosexual synagogues now in America than there are homosexual churches, and there are homosexual churches. Don't think there aren't. There are. There's whole denominations dedicated to it. There's more homosexual synagogues in America than there are homosexual churches. That's not my opinion. That's verified. So, in my opinion, in order to redeem Kadesh and get them into whatever rest is, they have to be homosexual. So don't think it's going to get better. It's going to get worse, which is fine. Therefore, let us fear lest while a promise remains of entering his rest, his menucha, any one of you should seem to come short of it. For indeed we have had Besorah preached us just like they did. But it wasn't united by faith in those who heard it. Now listen to this. For we who have believed enter that what? Rest. Menucha, rest. Just as it says in Psalm 96. And he quotes it again. As I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. Now look at this. Now he changes it and he starts saying what he's talking about.
Psalm 95.
Although his works were finished from the foundation of the world. What? Although his works were finished from the foundation of the world. Does that go with the verse? Let's read it again. For we have believed, we who have believed enter that menucha, just as he has said, as I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. Although his works were finished from the foundation of the world. Does that fit? Makes me go, huh? So he has changed his narrative to start telling you what he's talking about. For he has thus said somewhere concerning the seventh day. And God rested on the seventh day from all of his works. What's he talking about? What's he talking about? Shabbat. Shabbat. He has called rest that we are supposed to enter into and they were supposed to enter into the seventh. But I thought Yeshua was trying to lead them into a land. They weren't supposed to be going into a land. I mean, that was good. They were going into a land. But that wasn't the whole point. The point was going into a seventh day. Verse 5. And now he links it with Psalm 96 again, a fourth time.
Psalm 95.
Psalm 95. And again in this passage, they shall not enter my menucha, my rest, which is now we know what? A seventh day, Shabbat. Since therefore it remains for some to enter the seventh day, and those who formerly had the Besorah, the good news preached to them, failed to enter whatever that is because of not submitting, he again fixes a certain what? Day. He's said it now 3 times. It's a day, it's a day, it's a day. It's not a land. Today, he quotes it a 4th time, saying through David after such a long time, just as has been said before, today if you hear his voice, don't harden your hearts as at Meribat Kadesh. Meribat Kadesh is the ultimate picture of those who are not going to enter into God's rest, which is the whole point of the thing, which is the Messianic kingdom. And if you don't know the Messianic kingdom, if you don't know what the day of the Lord is, you don't know the Bible. You don't know the Bible. You may be born again, but you don't know the Bible. The Bible is all about this day. It's the whole point of the whole thing. It's not about Jesus Christ. Yeshua is supposed to lead us into that day. That's the point, is that day. Yeshua was going to lead them in, and they didn't go in. Now Yeshua is going to lead more Jews in, and they're not going to go in. And Christians, and pagans, and sodomites, and whatever else. Verse 8, for if Yeshua had given them rest, he would not have spoken of another, now he says it a fourth time, day after that. There remains therefore a Shabbat rest for the people of God. For the one who has entered his rest has himself also rested from his works, as God did from his. Kadesh is the biggest picture we have in the Bible, and I never saw it. It's the biggest picture of God redeeming the Jewish people. And I never saw it. Because I had them in my mind all over the place. Instead of centrally located where God could preach the gospel to them. Which he did. How? What did they have that was preaching the gospel to them? The tabernacle, the Torah, the sacrifices, the priesthood, the Shabbat, the new moon, the Sabbath, the festivals. And through those things, God preached the gospel to them. This is what the world is supposed to learn God from. Judaism. Centrally located, trapped in one place, until those who can't see it just die and are buried. And those who can see it get to go in. Does this make sense? Is it a little scary? You know, if people are born again, they're born again. They're going to be in the kingdom. They're not going to know where the heck they are. They're not going to know what they're doing. There's going to be rank in the kingdom. They're going to start at the bottom of the barrel. As it says in 15 passages in the Old and New Testament, there's rank in the kingdom. They'll be there, but they're going to be at the bottom of the barrel. They're going to be servants and slaves until they learn and grow. Got 1,000 years to do it. With a resurrected body that doesn't hold you back from learning. So that's the good news. But there is some bad news to it. That we are lazy. The body of Messiah is so lazy, they don't know anything. They're asleep and they're lazy. And we're lazy. We're lazy. So it has nothing to do with salvation, but I guarantee you it has something to do with knowing God. I've said this many times. You men, you're married, you want to know your wife or not. It takes a long, long, long time. Maybe you don't want to know. In Revelation, here's the last part. I'm not going to say much about this because it's a whole other room to walk into to learn from about Kadesh. But I'll just show you a tiny little part. 35 years ago, Joe Good was, I think this is when I drove to his house in Port Arthur, Texas. I was not lazy. He told me Jewish things, and he started with, Michael, do you know what the day of the Lord is? And I said, well, of course I do. And I said a whole bunch of nonsense. And then he started telling me what Judaism says the day of the Lord is, the seventh day. And it blew me away. It woke me up. And I couldn't think, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I literally could not sleep. I couldn't keep food down because I was so jacked up, I had to know more. So I drove from my house to his house, which is 18 hours. And he immediately started teaching me. I didn't even get to sleep. I didn't even get to take a nap. He said, Michael, do you want to study? I said, yeah, I want to study. So we started studying. We studied 18 hours straight. I did it a second time, 24 hours straight, because I didn't know anything. He told me 35 years ago, yeah, the Jews are going to go to Petra. And I said, that's stupid. And I kind of put it on the back burner and just forgot about it, but kept it in mind. Every time I came across Petra or Selah, it's called Selah in the Bible, in two passages, Isaiah and somewhere else. I think they're both in Isaiah, actually. Selah is Petra. Every time I would come across that, I'd think, why did Joe Good say the Jews are going to go to Petra? That's some Greek city in Jordan. Remember, my mind stayed on the other side of the Jordan. Never went to Jordan. It always stayed over on the other side. Yeah, I stayed on the west side. So, Revelation chapter 12, verse 5. This is in the birth pangs. She, Israel, gave birth to a son. What is that? Yeshua. But what is that? She, Israel, gave birth to a son. What's that called in the Bible? Birth pangs, because she gave birth. So this is the birth pangs. She gave birth to a son, a male, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child, Yeshua, was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman, Israel, fled into the wilderness. What wilderness? That's the only one they were in. There's no other wilderness listed that they were in. Search it. Tell me a name of another wilderness that they were in the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. Tell me the names of them. There's only two, Zin and Paran. That's it. So we know where she's going. 35 years later, I know where she's going. Into the wilderness of Zin or Paran, where she had a place prepared by God so that there she might be nourished for 3.5 years. The second half of the birth pangs. Verse 14. The two wings of the great eagle were given to the woman, to Israel, in order that she might fly into the wilderness of Zin or Paran, to her place where she was nourished for 3.5 years. It's Kadesh because she's a sodomite. She, Israel, is a male sodomite, a worshiper of demons. But God is going to redeem Israel in the birth pangs. Because just because they get born again doesn't magically mean, whoo, I'm a different person. All of Israel is going to get saved, but they're still going to be full of garbage. And they're going to be chased by the false Messiah. This is horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible what's going to happen. Worse than the Holocaust. I mean, people who got born again during the Holocaust, they didn't magically become supermen, did they? They died in the Holocaust. And some of them were real jerks. A lot of them were. They just got born again, that's all. All of the nation of Israel is going to get born again and be redeemed. So it may be that Kadesh is called Kadesh because he's Kadesh, a sodomite, idol worshiper. But I believe the picture is the same, that God's going to redeem Israel in the day of the Lord, in the birth pangs. Okay, let's review, shall we? Where is Kadesh? In the wilderness of Zin and Paran. Good. How many spies were sent out? Wrong. No spies. I'm in control of it now, so it's easy. They're shlachim. They're apostles. How many apostles were sent out? 12. Where were they sent out from? Where were they sent out from? Kadesh. Where did they return to? Kadesh. How long were they in Kadesh? 39 years. 39 years. How long was it from Sinai to Kadesh?
11 months.
Let's back up. How long were they at Sinai?
11 months.
How long was it supposed to be from Sinai to Kadesh? 11 days. Good. Yeah, baby. That's all I can think of. Okay. All right, keep working with it. I'm going to keep working with it. I'm going to teach more on this next week because the Torah portion, I read all of Numbers, and the story gets deeper and deeper and deeper. There's thousands of pictures at Kadesh. So let's pray. Thank you, Abba, for finally revealing this to me through Steve Rudd. And I ask that you bless him for it, Lord. Bless him for all the work he did, all the research he did. And Lord, I thank you for your word that is so crystal clear. I ask for eyes to see it. I don't want to ever find out that I'm this deceived again about anything. I ask that you'd show me everything about your word through the Torah portions. I thank you, Father, for revealing your word, peeling it back, layer by layer by layer, Shabbat after Shabbat after Shabbat, as a picture of your magnificent kingdom, that we're going to get to do this 24/7. Thank you, Abba, that we get to worship you unhindered by our bodies or by our minds. In the name of Yeshua, thank you for revealing your kingdom to your body, Abba, and shake them out of their slumber and out of their laziness. Shake us out of our laziness. But I ask that as you do it, you would have mercy on your people. Please have mercy on your people, Abba. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.